The soft winter light filtering through the glass walls of the Shilla Seouljeongbingwon Hall cast a gentle glow over the room, creating an atmosphere far more serene than what usually accompanies a celebrity media session. Reporters gathered with the expectation of hearing the usual mix of brand-related comments, light anecdotes, and project updates. No one anticipated anything more, certainly not something that would touch the heart of an entire nation. Yet there was a quiet hum in the room, as if something unspoken was already stirring. When Yoona stepped onto the stage, dressed in an elegant cream ensemble that reflected her natural charm, the atmosphere shifted almost imperceptibly. There was something softer in her smile, something thoughtful behind her eyes, as though she carried a secret she wasn't sure whether to share. The press greeted her with warm applause, and she bowed politely before settling down for the Q&A session following the luxury brand's presentation. At first, the questions were typical: her upcoming schedules, her thoughts on balancing acting and singing, her experience with recent endorsements. Yoona responded gracefully, her voice light and steady, her demeanor as bright as always. But as the session neared its final stretch, one reporter raised a simple, timeless question that celebrities had answered countless times before. "Yoona SSI," he said gently, "could you share your ideal type these days?" It was a harmless question, but the moment it landed, Yoona paused. Her smile remained, but her eyes flickered with a brief, unmistakable shyness. She lowered her gaze for a second, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture she often made only when she felt genuinely flustered. The room quieted. It wasn't the kind of silence born of anticipation, it was the kind born of curiosity. The kind that appears when people sense that the answer is not one they have heard before. Then, with a breath so soft it was almost invisible, she lifted her head and said quietly but clearly, "If I marry someday, I think it's him." Gasps followed. Camera shutters burst to life in a storm of clicks. Even seasoned reporters blinked in disbelief, their expressions caught between shock and delight. Yoona rarely spoke so openly, especially about romance. Her private life had always been exactly that, private. Yet here she was, offering a confession so gentle, so unguarded, that the entire hall seemed to lean forward at once. Yoona pressed her lips together, a faint blush creeping across her cheeks. But she didn't retract the statement. Instead, she allowed it to settle in the air like a small miracle. One reporter, still recovering, asked softly, "Could you tell us a little more? What kind of person would make you say something like that?" Yoona hesitated again, just long enough to let the suspense build, then offered a smile that felt both sincere and slightly bashful. "Someone who works very hard for his dreams," she said, her voice tinted with warmth. "Someone with warm eyes, someone who doesn't talk much but leads in quiet, reassuring ways." A ripple spread through the room. Words were not vague. They were not generic qualities meant to divert attention. They were specific, almost intimate. As though she were describing someone she knew well, someone who existed not in imagination but in memory. She continued, "I like someone who makes me feel calm even when we don't say much. Someone who respects my efforts and shares my sense of responsibility." The more she spoke, the deeper the room fell into a fascinated hush. Because anyone who had followed her career closely, anyone who had watched her recent projects, her chemistry with a certain co-star, the way their names had been whispered together in countless threads, couldn't help but feel the subtle, irresistible pull of possibility. She wasn't naming him, but she didn't need to. The silhouette of him was already taking shape between her words. A reporter dared to ask, "Is he someone you've worked with before?" Yoona laughed softly, her hand moving instinctively to her cheek as though to hide a blush. She didn't answer yes. She didn't answer no. She simply said, "Think, people will understand naturally." And that single line, simple, teasing, possibly romantic, sent another wave of astonishment through the room. It was the kind of answer that felt crafted for a drama script. Yet Yoona delivered it with such natural sweetness that it could only have come from genuine emotion. The interviewer pressed gently, "What made you think he's the one you would marry someday?" His eyes softened, drifting somewhere far beyond the cameras, as though replaying a quiet moment only she remembered. "Time when I was very tired," she said. "Very long filming day, and I didn't say anything, but he noticed. He didn't make a big gesture. Just stayed. He made me laugh. I think that was when I realized I felt safe." Exchanged knowing glances. Fans would dissect those words for months. Industry insiders already knew the story, that on set, during a particularly exhausting period, certain male co-star with warm eyes and quiet leadership had cheered her up, taken care of her silently, and created chemistry so natural it blurred the line between acting and something deeper. But still, Yoona did not say his name. Restraint only heightened the magic. The session continued. But the tone had changed entirely. The room felt brighter, as though her confession had lifted something in the air. Reporters found themselves smiling without meaning to. Even the staff members standing against the wall seemed to exchange discreet glances, their eyes shimmering with amusement. They, too, knew who she meant, though none of them would say it out loud. Q&A neared the end. A final question came from a reporter in the front row. Yoona SSI, are you saying your heart is already decided? Yoona lowered her eyes once more, the softest smile gracing her lips. My heart already knows, she whispered. It's him. Single. Delicate confession. The session concluded, not with fanfare, not with dramatic music, but with a quiet, breathless sense that something beautifully intimate had just been shared. The kind of moment that fans replay in their minds, journalists rewrite 1,000 times, that the entertainment world would talk about for weeks. Yoona stood, bowed politely, and walked off stage with the grace of someone who had revealed just enough to ignite hope, but not enough to give away the whole truth. Outside Yongbingwen Hall, speculation was already brewing like wildfire. Every reporter, every camera, every whisper spiraled into the same question. Him. And though no name had been spoken, the answer lingered silently in the air, warm, steady, unmistakable. Long after the lights dimmed inside Yongbingwen Hall, the echo of Yoona's confession continued to ripple through the entertainment world like a soft, lingering melody. The moment she left the stage, staff members whispered to one another in hushed excitement. Journalists scrambled to craft headlines that could capture the weight of her words, and fans online created entire timelines of evidence pointing toward the man they believed she was speaking of. Yet in the middle of that rising storm, herself vanished quietly into a private waiting room overlooking the gardens of the Shilla Soul. A staff member who had accompanied her described the atmosphere inside as calm but glowing, the kind of serenity someone carries after finally letting truth slip past the walls they've held for too long. Yoona sat by the window for a few minutes, gazing out at the soft winter branches swaying gently in the wind. In that silent moment, it became clear that her confession had not been a calculated answer for attention. It had been something far more personal. As she sipped warm tea, her manager handed her a phone. A smile curved on her lips, not the polite smile she gave the cameras, but one touched by genuine affection. She didn't read the message aloud, but her expression gave everything away. Someone who had congratulated her. Someone who understood why her answer mattered. Someone who had always stayed just a little out of the frame, yet close enough for their presence to be felt. Later in a post-event interview for Elle Korea about the sudden emotional tone of her answer, Yoona didn't hesitate. Love is something I've always cherished quietly, she said. Not someone who believes in dramatic gestures. I think true affection is found in small things, patience, sincerity, responsibility. The interviewer leaned in, asking gently, is that why your ideal type today sounds so specific? Yoona laughed, shy and honest. I didn't mean for it to sound that way, she said. Maybe my heart has become more certain over time. Added a line that had everyone in the production room holding their breath. Sometimes a person shows you who they are not by speaking, simply by being there. It was the kind of statement that felt like a confession wrapped inside a lesson. As soon as Elle Korea released the audio excerpt, social media erupted, because everyone remembered that particular male co-star who had always been there. The man known for silent leadership on sets. The man who would step aside just slightly so Yoona could shine first. The man who noticed small things, like when she was cold, or tired, or overwhelmed, and always found quiet ways to care. Industry insiders began to speak anonymously. Words only deepened the mystery. One staff member from a drama they had both filmed recalled. There was a moment during a late-night shoot. He looked extremely tired, and he walked over without saying anything. Just handed her a warm pack and told her to rest while he handled the next setup. It didn't feel like acting. It felt real. Other stylists who had worked with them described their chemistry off-camera as effortless. There was no flirting, she said. Just a kind of natural understanding. They didn't need to talk much. One glance between them was enough. Of course, no one dared confirm anything outright. But Yoona herself felt no need to stop the growing speculation. During another interview segment that evening, a reporter asked, "Is the person you mentioned someone you've filmed with?" Yoona's reaction was everything. She froze for a heartbeat, caught off guard by how close the question struck. Then she looked down, shoulders lifting slightly as if she were trying to hide a smile that refused to fade. "I can't say that," she replied softly. "There were moments during filming when I learned a lot about him. About how sincere a person can be." Voice lingered on the word sincere long enough for anyone listening to understand she was not talking about an abstract ideal. She was talking about someone real, someone who had been part of her journey in ways the public had only seen glimpses of. Reporters continued probing, some gently, boldly. Yoona maintained her grace. When asked what made her certain about him, she answered, "When someone makes you laugh without trying, supports you in silence, and when you feel peaceful just by being around them, you don't forget that." And again, the entire room felt it. The truth hidden in plain sight. While Yoona never stated a name, fans immediately recognized the unmistakable silhouette of the man behind her words. The height, the posture, the disciplined work ethic, the warmth in his eyes, the quiet gestures captured by behind-the-scenes cameras. Every piece of the puzzle pointed to the same person. A person who had walked beside her professionally. Perhaps quietly, personally. One entertainment columnist put it beautifully. Yoona didn't confess a name. She confessed a feeling. A loyalty. A certainty. And sometimes speaks louder than anything. By the time Yoona left the Sheila Soul, escorted through a private corridor, air outside had already turned crisp and cold. The atmosphere surrounding her confession remained warm, almost glowing. She stepped into the car with a small, content smile. Relieved that the world finally understood, even without an explicit explanation. A reporter who caught a glimpse of her departure noted, "She looked like someone who had finally acknowledged her own heart, even if she didn't share every detail of it." Perhaps that was the most beautiful part of her revelation. After all, doesn't always need a name to be recognized. Sometimes it only needs the courage of a quiet sentence. Heard in a crowded hall full of flashing lights. Yoona had given the world exactly that, a confession wrapped in grace, mystery, and unmistakable truth. Didn't say who he was, but everyone already knew.